Master?
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about the ending of Ahsoka Episode 4. So, this ending gives us a very unlikely reunion between Ahsoka Tano and her master, Anakin Skywalker. But this reunion is happening in the weirdest, most controversial part of Star Wars this side of The Last Jedi. Guy trapped in TV, Doug, welcome to the world between worlds. So, I'm going to explain this ending, the lore leading up to it, and how all of this can set up a meeting between Anakin and Luke Skywalker, and most importantly, what this means next for Ahsoka's journey.
Yeah, now all of that sounds really cool.
Yes, it does. And before I get rolling, once again, guys, I want to thank all of you for watching the channel and supporting us and shopping our new merch store. We have brand new designs dropping next week that I am so excited to show you. But in the meantime, we have our Apprentice Lives, the Hello There, Doug is the Foundling, and many, many more. So, the most important thing about this scene is that it's going to help Ahsoka deal with her childhood trauma of the Clone Wars and the guilt she feels walking away from Anakin and the Jedi Order decades ago.
Before the end of the Clone Wars, I walked away from him.
So, here's where we are. Ahsoka is fighting Balin's skull and she falls off a cliff. Now later we see that same cliff from overhead and it's clear that there's no way she could have survived that fall. And then she wakes up in this strange realm with the ghost, maybe, of her former master. But to understand what's going on here, I first have to explain all of the kind of weird lore from the animated shows that led us to this moment. So, first of all, I'm assuming that all of you know that Ahsoka Tano was Anakin Skywalker's apprentice during the Clone Wars. Now there is this 3-episode arc of the excellent Clone Wars series where Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka travel to a Force world called Mortis, and then they encounter 3 beings that are like seemingly made of the Force. We have the brother who represents the dark side, the sister who represents the good side, and the father who balances the two. The sister also has a magical Force owl called Morai that follows her around. So the father knows that he is going to die soon, so he wants Anakin to take his place as the one who can balance the Force. Because if his kids aren't balanced, they'll go out of control and consume the entire universe. So, very long story short, the brother kills Ahsoka and then mortally wounds his sister with a special Force dagger. And then Anakin channels the sister's life force into Ahsoka, similar to what we see Rey do in The Rise of Skywalker. So after this, Ahsoka has an attachment to that Force owl, Morai. Basically, what this means is that Ahsoka has the spirit of a very strong Force being within her, and she's also being watched over by a magic bird. And we have seen other godlike Force beings before, like the Bendu in Rebels.
I see your defeat, like many arms surrounding you in a cold embrace.
So Ahsoka has the spirit and power of one of these Force gods within her.
Hey, mental health check. How you doing?
I'm a lot better, Doug. Thanks for asking. I actually just stopped clenching my jaw all the time.
Do you say what now?
Well, when we get super busy and we have to rush out these Easter egg videos, I get really stressed out, and I have like oral fixation habits to help me cope with anxiety. For some people, it's stress eating, but for me, I also have this habit of constantly, obsessively clenching my jaw. But now, when I have that urge, I use this natural diffusive device called Fume.
Is that a vape? Kind of looks like a vape.
No, man, it is not a vape. In fact, it's not even electronic, and it doesn't have pods filled with potentially harmful chemicals. Instead, it's got these nice plant-based cores that are infused with natural flavors. I like the orange vanilla the best. It makes my breath smell nice too. You see, Fume, the sponsor of this video, uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. Plus, it has adjustable airflow and is designed with these movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving my fingers something to do, which is also helpful for calming my anxiety. Fume makes switching easy and even fun. They have thousands of 5-star reviews from more than 100,000 customers who have used Fume to change their lives and switched when other solutions just didn't work. So head to tryfume.com/ScreenCrush and use the code ScreenCrush to get 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. The Journey Pack comes with 3 unique flavors and everything you need to finally be free of your own bad habits. That's tryfum.com and use the code ScreenCrush to save an additional 10% off your order today. Now back to Ahsoka. So remember how Obi-Wan Kenobi originally explained the Force?
It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
So the expanded lore in the animated shows and the novels has explained there is kind of a literal meaning here, through hyperspace.
Yeah, what's hyperspace?
Well, think of hyperspace as a subdimension beneath like normal space, and the subdimension is like strongly connected to the Force. Hyperspace allows you to enter at one point of space and exit from another like very quickly. And there is a lot of evidence that hyperspace is an aspect of the Force itself. Trust me, all of this connects to Ahsoka's ending and Thrawn. So the very earliest hyperspace travelers we know of are actually animals that are very attuned to the Force. First of all, we have the Purrgil. That's the space whales that we see in this past episode. In fact, the earliest hyperspace travelers followed the Purrgil migration paths.
Old pilot said it was the Purrgil who inspired us to jump from system to system.
Now, to navigate through hyperspace, you need a computer that can detect objects in real space, so you don't accidentally pull a holdo and materialize inside of a star or a planet. But before hyperdrive computers, the earliest hyperspace navigators were Force-sensitive people who could feel their way through hyperspace. In fact, Thrawn is from a very dangerous area of the galaxy called the Unknown Regions, where thousands of years ago a natural disaster damaged hyperspace so much that they can no longer use computers to navigate through it, and the people there have to use a Force-sensitive navigator. There's even one novel where Thrawn teaches Vader how to do this. So, like I said, there's evidence that the Force is connected directly to hyperspace. The other hyperspace traveling animals are the Loth wolves. Now these are giant, Force-sensitive wolves that help Ezra and the other rebels escape the Empire with something called hyperspace tunneling. This allowed them to transport across their planet in seconds. And while they're doing this, the wolves step onto a transparent bridge surrounded by stars, which looks a lot like the World Between Worlds. So this is implying that the Force-sensitive Loth wolves are also using this realm, the World Between Worlds, to travel through hyperspace. And so this brings us to the World Between Worlds. So like a good chunk of Star Wars Rebels takes place on a planet called Lothal, which we saw in the first couple episodes of Ahsoka. This is the home planet of Ezra Bridger and those Force-sensitive Loth wolves, and there's also a secret Jedi temple on this planet. Now, during the show, Ezra and Kanan even use this temple to communicate with Yoda. So, like, the planet is very powerful in the Force. In Season 4, the Empire excavated this Jedi temple and discovered a mural of the father, the sister, and the brother with some Loth wolves. See, I told you all of that is going to connect. Notice on the mural all these weird lines and configurations, very similar to the Night Sister Temple and the map to Peridia. Now Sabine interprets the mural.
Ezra, it's art. Everything has a meaning.
And then Ezra uses the Force to change the picture, which opens up a gateway. The wolves come to life and form a circle, just like the gateway on Cetos that we saw that was made of Purrgil. So then Ezra enters this gateway into the World Between Worlds. So now that you're caught up on the backstory, let's talk about what the heck this place actually is. Ezra finds himself on this path in the middle of a void, with different roads leading to different gateways. And notice how he hears voices from the past, present, and future, with even a soundbite from Kylo Ren mixed in there.
Time to fight is now.
Where are they coming from?
This is because this World Between Worlds is like a way station where you can access different points in space and time. Very similar to hyperspace travel, except instead of just skipping through space, you're also skipping through the time stream. Now, each gateway is a bit different to mark to where it leads. The Lothal gate has wolves, and then Ahsoka's spirit animal, Morai, leads Ezra to a gate shaped like a Sith temple. So here I gotta rewind for just a second. Ezra and the other rebels knew Ahsoka. Ahsoka helped to organize the rebellion in its very early years. So, at the end of Season 2, Ahsoka fought Darth Vader at a Sith temple on a planet called Malachor. She was keeping Vader at bay so Ezra and the others could escape. This is an extremely powerful scene where the former Padawan has to confront what her master has become.
Anakin.
Which, by the way, was paralleled by this fight in Obi-Wan Kenobi when the other half of Vader's mask was destroyed.
If I had a nickel for every time I was doomed by a puppet, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
Now, we were originally led to believe that Ahsoka died in this fight, but what actually happened was Ezra pulls her into the World Between Worlds just 2 years into her future.
I thought you were dead.
My death was greatly exaggerated.
Now, I have to stress that this was not technically time travel, and Ezra did not change the timeline. This is like the closed-loop time travel, where everything that happens was supposed to happen all along, like Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen or the Tesseract in Interstellar. In fact, when Ezra tries to save his master from dying, Ahsoka warns him against this.
Kanan gave his life so that you could live. If he's taken out of this moment, you all die.
And then they find a portal with the Sith insignia, and Palpatine is in there trying to enter the realm using blue flame. This is very similar to the green flames of the Night Sisters, like the green flame that Morgan Elsbeth uses to access the map to Peridia. But Sith magic, like their lightning, is blue. And by the way, I'm using like magic with a K here because this is like basically a different way of using the Force. So all of this is implying that the Night Sisters, like Morgan Elsbeth, have the means to enter this realm with Force magic with a K. And Palpatine like really wants to enter it so he can get to that sweet, sweet power. So Ezra and Ahsoka successfully keep Palpatine out, and Ahsoka returns to the temple where she fought Vader, but probably a few years in the future, like after the Empire is defeated, which explains why she was not in the original trilogy.
Nobody knew where you were, and your phone was off?
Now, we have theorized in past videos that this realm can be accessed through certain planets that have Force hotspots, such as the mural on Lothal, which we already talked about is a very strong planet with the Force. And we also have this altar on Cetos. And just to connect this to hyperspace, the world between worlds might have also been used by an ancient race as a kind of Stargate to instantaneously travel between different planets. And those planets, these Force hotspots, might be the worlds listed in the runes in the Ahsoka credits. After all, those credits include Force-heavy planets like Lothal and Dathomir, that is the home planet of the Night Sisters. In fact, our own Colton Ogburn had an awesome theory about the rise of Skywalker. So remember at the end of the movie on Exegol when like Rey heard the voices of the Jedi from years past?
Not alone, Rey. Never have you been. Every Jedi who ever lived lives in you.
Since Exegol is like a really strong planet in the Force, it would make sense if maybe she accessed the world between worlds, and that is how all of these people granted her their strength and power. So now we can see how all of this connects together. We have the hyperspace ring that Morgan is building, the Force magic of Morgan Elsbeth, and the world between worlds. Now let's dive into this ending. So Ahsoka did not enter through a gateway. She finds herself lying on this path. This implies that she was brought here by another being, or that she died and she is in the afterlife. Anakin does say,
I didn't expect to see you so soon.
Which kind of implies that she has died before her time. So there are two possibilities here. One is that this is Anakin's ghost. So let's talk about that first. Now here I want to quote from the new book, Return of the Jedi, from a certain point of view. There is an excellent short story in here by Mike Chen, which is about Anakin's Force ghost at the end of that movie. So this story details what happened to his spirit after he said,
You were right about me.
and it says, with that, Anakin sank into the Force, guided only by a single flame. But in the middle of the nothingness, the unexpected occurred. Anakin felt the flame within him, a growing intensity strong enough to break the darkness. Then Anakin sees people from across his life, talking about him. He hears,
There's good in him.
He is the chosen one. He will bring balance. Train him.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy.
So this is not like Anakin's life flashing before his eyes. He has seen people talk about him when he wasn't there. So this is Anakin's spirit being able to see across time, almost like the voices from the past, present, and future that Ezra heard when he entered the world between worlds.
Those voices.
Time to fight is now.
Where are they coming from?
And then Anakin essentially wills himself back into consciousness instead of surrendering to the Force. Then he and Obi-Wan's spirit have a heart-to-heart. It's very sweet. And then they watch the kids celebrate on Endor.
So why do some Jedi become Force ghosts and others do not?
Okay, so there are two different ways to view the Force. There is the cosmic Force, which is like a higher intelligence guiding everything. And then there is the living Force that is generated by all living things. Qui-Gon talked about this in The Phantom Menace.
At ease, Obi-Wan. Keep your concentration here and now where it belongs. Be mindful of the living force, young Padawan.
Qui-Gon was super into the living Force. He studied it so much that it allowed him to bring his spirit back from the dead.
An old friend has learned the path to immortality. One who has returned from the netherworld of the Force.
And then in the show Obi-Wan, we saw Qui-Gon begin to teach Obi-Wan how to become a Force ghost. Whereas Anakin was just super powerful with the Force, so he was able to do this through his own force of will. And this brings us to Anakin in the world between worlds. Notice how he's dressed. This is what he was wearing the last time he and Ahsoka saw each other. Now, online there's some confusion over his lightsaber, with some people thinking that he's carrying Darth Vader's saber, but I think this is just the darkness reflecting on the silver hilt. Now, it is interesting though that he is wearing these clothes from the Clone Wars, because in Return of the Jedi, he is dressed in the regular Jedi robes. Now, in this short story, he is surprised that he manifested wearing these robes. I'm as surprised as you are, he tells Obi-Wan. I didn't choose this. I didn't choose any of this. And then Obi-Wan replies, well, old friend, perhaps those robes chose you. In other words, the Force has seen the inner light inside Anakin Skywalker, sensed his goodness, and then manifested his appearance. So, in the world between worlds, Anakin appears as Ahsoka would see him, as the dashing knight of the Clone Wars with a horribly de-aged face. I mean, there is a cool parallel here that the last time she was in the world between worlds, she was fleeing Anakin, and now she has found him. So, if this is Anakin's spirit, then he could be here to guide Ahsoka through her journey. Ahsoka left the Jedi Order because she became disillusioned with the Jedi Council, so she left before her training was complete. And like I said earlier, she still feels guilt over this.
Anakin never got to finish my training. Before the end of the Clone Wars, I walked away from him and the Jedi.
because when she left the Order, it made Anakin distrust the Jedi Council, which led to him becoming closer to Palpatine and eventually betraying the Jedi Order. So, meeting his Force Ghost could help her reconcile with her guilt and move past it. This would alleviate her fears about training Sabine. He could then complete her training and dub her a full-fledged Jedi Knight, if that's what she wants. Or his spirit could just give her advice. Anakin met Thrawn during the Clone Wars, and then he worked with him as Darth Vader. He knows how Thrawn thinks, and he could have some insight on how to defeat him. So, that's option one, that this is Force Ghost Anakin, but there's another option that's even spicier, that this could actually be Anakin from the past after he entered his own portal into the world between worlds.
No way, but then wouldn't Ahsoka want to warn him about becoming Darth Vader?
No, because remember, she warned Ezra to not change the past.
Kanan gave his life so that you could live. If he's taken out of this moment, you all die.
And so for Ahsoka, this would be heartbreaking, like when Marty really wanted to warn Doc about his death in Back to the Future.
Marty! We've already agreed that having information about the future can be extremely dangerous. Even if your intentions are good, it can backfire drastically.
Also, just side note, Anakin did find out about his future as Darth Vader on the planet Mortis. The son told him, but then his memory was erased. So maybe he'll find out and forget. But again, I have to reiterate, the world between worlds cannot actually be used to change time at all.
Changing the past doesn't change the future.
Things are what they are. Events in the future have already occurred. For instance, Anakin saw visions of Padme's death, so he worked hard to prevent her death, which only in the end caused her death.
A very Greek space opera.
You're right, high five. Star Wars loves to bring up the word destiny. Everything that happens was destined to happen in the will of the Force. But through the world between worlds, it is possible for people to at least meet across time. Or maybe Anakin left a kind of echo of his consciousness here. We did see this in the comics where Luke met the consciousness of a High Republic Jedi named Elzar Mann. But I digress.
This is getting confusing.
Yes, it is. And so this is the world between worlds. It gets confusing. So it also means the possibilities here can get really out of hand. In theory, we could have a tremendous Star Wars crossover event in that upcoming Dave Filoni movie. The world between worlds accesses all of time and space. So imagine if we got an endgame portal scene, but with Jedi Master Luke Skywalker from before Kylo Ren's fall, and Rey from the distant future, or young Yoda, or Avar Kriss from the High Republic, or Anakin from the Clone Wars, or Cal from Fallen Order. All the most powerful Force wielders in the franchise in one place to fight Thrawn.
Why are we not funding this?
Basically, we could now actually have that Patton Oswalt rant from Parks and Rec.
Now Wolverine's going to be there. Now Cyclops is going to be there. So the Quinjet comes through. Luke gets in his X-Wing to go out and meet them.
Man, this is complicated.
You're right. So let's lower the temperature here and just talk about this. Is Ahsoka dead? They make it seem like Ahsoka has entered the Force afterlife, and the world between worlds could be a literal manifestation of that void that I talked about that Anakin was in the Return of the Jedi short story. So is Ahsoka dead? Well, the thing is, we didn't see a body over the cliffs, so I think it's more likely that Ahsoka was pulled into this realm because the Force chose her. Remember, Ahsoka's spirit is tied to that Force owl named Morai, and that owl is going to be very important. Morai is able to appear across time and space, probably because like the Purrgil and the Lothwolves, it can travel through hyperspace. In fact, I think the owl can travel through hyperspace by entering the world between worlds. After all, when Ezra entered the world between worlds, the first thing he saw was the owl Morai. And this owl is constantly appearing in places near or important to Ahsoka, even though she never travels with the bird. It showed up here in The Mandalorian, and in the last episode of the Clone Wars, it appeared here over Darth Vader when he was looking at the site where Ahsoka escaped the Jedi Purge. And it's implied that Morai is in this shot watching Hu Yang from the branches of the trees. So I think that Morai pulled Ahsoka into this realm to save her life. And because Cetos is one of those Force Gateway hotspots on the Purrgil migration path, the planet already had an existing portal to the world between worlds. Although, if I can just say this real quick, I am hoping they don't explain all of that because I think the Force is just getting too damn literal. The Force can just choose to bring her here without her entering into a literal gateway. But I digress. What we're seeing here is Ahsoka on the classic hero's journey. She is about to have a reckoning with her father figure that will allow her to move past the trauma of her childhood. She and Sabine are also both inside the belly of the beast, the low point of the story where the hero has no way out. And I think Ahsoka will escape this by learning to forgive herself for Anakin's fall. And I think that her supposed death will actually be her salvation, as she can use the world between worlds to travel to Peridia, rescue Ezra, and confront Thrawn. And I gotta note here that this realm, the world between worlds, is what Baylan wants.
Power. Such as you've never dreamed.
He even drops a hint to Ahsoka about the future.
The only reason I'm here
is to secure the future.
So Baylan wants to access the knowledge of the past, present, and future. He wants knowledge, probably so he has the means to establish a new, stronger Jedi Order, or he'll want to shape all of time and reality to try to prevent the fall of the Jedi Order. So maybe he aligned with Morgan Elsbeth to begin with because she promised to use her green flame Night Sister magic to help him enter this realm, the way Palpatine was able to enter using his Sith Force magic. But if Baylan does take over this realm, the first thing he should do is install a railing.
I just want a railing. You know, one railing, right here.
And just a reminder, everyone, to create good habits today, head to tryfum.com and use the code ScreenCrush to save an additional 10% off your order today. What do you guys think about the ending? Are you jazzed? Is it too complicated, too weird? Is there anything you don't understand? Let me know in the comments below, or you can @me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.